The shuttle moved down through the purple sky of Valthene Prime. Jake Morrison sat near the window and watched the alien city grow larger below them. Tall crystal buildings reached up toward the clouds. Bridges made of light-connected structures that seemed to float in the air without support. Commander Lisa Hayes sat in the pilot seat. She glanced back at Jake and asked, "First time seeing a Class 3 civilization?" Jake gave a small smile. First time being invited as a guest, instead of being studied like a lab specimen. The Valthene had found humanity 3 months earlier. Both sides had been careful at first. Humans were new to space travel. Only about 100 years into it. The Valthene Empire controlled 14 star systems and had existed for more than 6,000 years. But the Valthene wanted something from humans. They needed the rare metals that humans had learned to mine from asteroid fields, and humans wanted the advanced shield technology that the Valthene had perfected. The shuttle landed on a platform made of black stone that reflected everything like a mirror. The doors opened, and Jake stepped out. The air smelled strange, like electricity mixed with something sweet that he could not name. A group of Valthene waited for them. They were tall, about 7 feet on average. Their skin changed colors between blue and purple, depending on how the light hit them. They had large black eyes with no visible pupils. They wore fancy robes that seemed to move by themselves. "Ambassador Morrison," the lead alien said in perfect English. Their translation devices worked well. "I am Chancellor Vex. Welcome to Valthene Prime. The Emperor is waiting for you. In the Palace of Eternal Thought." "New." Jake bowed his head slightly. "Thank you, Chancellor. I am honored to be here." The trip through the city amazed Jake. Vehicles floated silently through the air. Valthene citizens stopped to stare at the humans walking past. Most of them looked curious, but kept their distance. "They seem interested in us," Lisa said quietly. "We are probably the first humans they have ever seen," Jake replied. The palace was massive. It had strange angles that should not have been possible and parts that floated without any visible support. Inside, the hallways had sculptures that moved slowly, and paintings that changed their images as people watched them. Emperor Krath received them in a throne room as large as an airplane hangar. The Emperor looked ancient. His skin was dark indigo, which meant he was very old by Valthene standards. He sat on a throne made of solid light. Next to him stood a younger Valthene female, wearing elaborate robes. "Humans," the Emperor said. His voice echoed through the huge room. "You stand before the Valthene throne. I am Emperor Krath, and this is my daughter, Princess Sarah, heir to the Eternal Empire." Princess Sarah stepped forward. Even by Valthene standards, she was young. Her skin was bright violet and almost seemed to glow. Her black eyes looked sharp and proud. "Father," Sarah said, looking at the Emperor instead of Jake. "These are the primitives who want to trade with us? They look even weaker than the report said." Jake felt Lisa become tense next to him, but he stayed calm. Insults happened in negotiations sometimes, especially when one side felt superior. He had dealt with worse situations before. "Princess Sarah," Emperor Krath said with warning in his voice. "Our guests have traveled far. Show proper courtesy." But Sarah did not seem to care about courtesy. She turned her dark eyes on Jake and studied him like someone might look at a bug. "Tell me, human," she said. "What makes you think your species deserves Valthene technology? You have barely left your own star system. Your ships are crude and basic. Your understanding of physics is like a child's. You are children playing with fire." "Princess," Chancellor Vex said quickly. "Perhaps we should move to the conference room and discuss terms there." "I am curious," Sarah interrupted. "I have read about your species. You make war on each other constantly. You destroy your own planet. You have hundreds of different languages because you cannot even agree on how to communicate. And yet you come here, asking for our help?" Jake looked at her steadily. This was a test, he realized. She was young, and trying to show she was in charge. The right response was to stay professional and not get angry. "Your Highness," he said calmly. Every species has a history with difficult parts. We come not as beggars, but as potential partners. What we lack in age, we make up for in determination and new ideas. Sierra laughed. The sound was like bells, but without any warmth. Innovation? You mine asteroids. We reshape entire planets. You build space stations. We build orbital rings around whole worlds. You are not partners. You are barely worth noticing. The throne room became very quiet. Jake could feel dozens of Valthene eyes watching him. They wanted to see how he would react. This was an important moment. If he responded with too much anger, they would see humans as primitive and violent. If he responded too weakly, humanity would lose all respect. We all start somewhere, Your Highness, Jake said. The Valthene Empire was once young too, but never primitive, Sierra snapped back. Never savage like you. I have seen your history, Ambassador Morrison. Your wars, your genocides, your nuclear weapons that poisoned your own world. You are a dangerous species that cannot be trusted with advanced technology. Giving you our shield systems would be like giving a child a plasma cannon. Eventually, someone gets hurt. Jake took a slow breath. The princess was crossing lines now. He could see that even Emperor Krath looked unhappy. But Jake had been in difficult negotiations before. The key was to not make things worse. Princess Sierra, he said carefully. I understand your concerns. Perhaps we could discuss this in a more private setting, where we can address your specific worries about our species. You understand nothing, Sierra said. Her voice got louder. You stand in the palace of eternal thought, before the throne of an empire that existed when your ancestors still lived in caves, and you dare to speak of partnership? You are here because we allow it. You breathe our air because we permit it. Your entire species exists in our galaxy only because we have not decided otherwise. Sierra. Emperor Krath's voice was like thunder. That is enough. But the princess was not finished. She stepped down from the raised platform and walked toward Jake. She was almost 2 feet taller than him, and she used that height to look down at him with clear contempt. Look at you, she said quietly, but everyone in the huge room could hear her. You cannot even achieve proper height. Your lifespan is pathetically short. Your bodies break easily. Your minds are limited by your brief existence. You are an evolutionary dead end, Ambassador Morrison. The sooner your species accepts its place as a minor curiosity in a galaxy of superior beings, the better for everyone. The throne room was completely silent. Jake could see Valthene courtiers watching with shock and excitement. Lisa's hand had moved slightly toward her weapon, though Jake knew she would not draw it. This was the moment that would define everything. The princess had delivered an insult so deep that any response would shape how the Valthene Empire viewed humanity forever. If he responded with anger, he would confirm their view of humans as primitive and emotional. If he responded weakly, humanity would be seen as inferior forever. Jake looked at Princess Sarah for a long moment. He saw the pride in her eyes. She was certain she had won. She expected him to either yell at her or beg for forgiveness. Those were the only two responses she had ever seen in similar situations. Instead, Jake did something no Valthene had ever done when insulted. He simply turned around and walked away. He did not speak. He did not bow. He did not acknowledge the princess or the emperor or anyone else in the throne room. He just turned and began walking toward the exit with perfect calm. Ambassador Morrison, Chancellor Vex called out. He sounded shocked. Where are you going? You cannot just leave. Jake did not answer. He kept walking. His footsteps echoed in the huge chamber. Lisa walked beside him, her face neutral but her eyes showing approval. Ambassador! The Chancellor called again. You cannot simply walk away from the throne. But Jake did exactly that. He walked out of the throne room, down the hall with the moving art, through the palace entrance, and back to the landing platform where their shuttle waited. He did not speak until they were inside with the doors closed. "Take us back to the orbital station," Jake said calmly to Lisa. "Yes, sir," Lisa said. For the first time, she allowed herself a small smile. That was very interesting. As the shuttle lifted off, Jake looked back once at the palace. He could see figures coming out onto viewing platforms, staring up at the departing human shuttle. He had just done something the Valthene had never experienced before. He had refused to engage. In their culture, where verbal combat and confrontation showed strength, he had chosen silence. By doing this, he left them with no victory to claim and no defeat to assign to him. The message was clear. Humanity did not need the Valthene badly enough to accept insults. They could walk away, and that simple act would change everything between the two species. The shuttle connected with the human orbital station. It was a small structure compared to the huge Valthene installations that filled the planet's orbit. Ambassador Kyle Chen was waiting in the docking bay. His face showed the stress of someone who had been dealing with urgent messages. "Jake," Kyle said as soon as the shuttle doors opened. "What happened down there?" "The Valthene have been sending messages non-stop for the past hour." Chancellor Vex sounds almost panicked. Jake walked past him toward the briefing room. "The princess insulted humanity. I did not respond. I left. You did not respond?" Kyle followed him quickly. "Jake, we need this deal. The shield technology could save countless human lives in dangerous space sectors." "I know what it could do," Jake said calmly. He entered the briefing room and turned on the holographic screen. "But we do not need it badly enough to accept disrespect. If the Valthene want to negotiate, they know where we are. Until then, we wait." Lisa entered behind them and nodded to Kyle. "The princess went way too far, sir. She called humans evolutionary dead ends and primitives. She said we exist only because they allow it. It was beyond normal diplomatic testing." Kyle sat down heavily in a chair. "And you just walked away?" "Jake, the Valthene culture values confrontation. They see verbal combat as a sign of strength and intelligence." "I know their culture," Jake interrupted quietly. "And now they are going to learn something about ours. We do not fight every battle we are invited to. Sometimes the strongest response is refusing to respond at all." On the planet below, chaos was spreading through the palace. Chancellor Vex stood in his private chambers, staring at a communication terminal. He had sent 7 messages to the human station. None had received any reply. None had received any reply. "This is unprecedented," his assistant, a young Valthene named Trix, said nervously. The human ambassador simply left. No threats, no demands, no angry speeches. He just walked out. "I know what happened," Vex said sharply. In Valthene culture, silence after an insult meant one of two things. Either you were too weak to respond, or you were planning something terrible. The humans had not seemed weak. Ambassador Morrison's behavior had been perfectly controlled. His departure was deliberate and calm. That meant he might be planning the second option. "Are they preparing for war?" Trix asked. "Should we alert the military forces?" "Do not be stupid," Vex said, though his tone suggested he was not entirely certain. "They have 3 ships in this system. We have an entire fleet. They would not dare attack us." He paused. "Would they?" In the throne room, Emperor Krath was having a similar conversation with his daughter. Princess Sarah stood before him. Her skin now showed dark spots, which appeared when Valthene felt uncertain or stressed. "I do not understand, father," she said. "I issued a challenge. He should have responded. That is how these things work. That is how things work with Valthene," the Emperor said quietly. "Humans are different. You insulted him, his entire species, and his purpose for being here. He could have responded with anger. He could have insulted you back. He could have even attacked you physically. which would have been stupid but at least understandable within our cultural framework. Foreman, thanks for watching. Him buddy, and subscribe to I. So why did he just leave? Sira asked. That, the Emperor said, is the question that now occupies the entire court. A question we should not have needed to ask if you had shown the restraint I tried to teach you. Within hours, the story of the silent ambassador spread through Valthene Prime like wildfire. In the marketplaces, in the government buildings, in the military schools, everyone discussed the same thing. The human who had walked away without saying a word. A well-known Valthean philosopher named Merix appeared on the planet's largest news network. Millions watched him explain what he thought had happened. It is a power move, Merix told the viewers. Think about what he communicated without speaking. He said, without saying anything, that we are not worth his words, that our princess's insults are beneath his notice, that humanity has better things to do than argue with an inexperienced girl. But is that not disrespectful to the throne? The news host asked. Disrespectful would have been shouting back at her, Merix explained. Disrespectful would have been counter-insults. What Ambassador Morrison did was something far more cutting. He dismissed us entirely. He acted as if we do not matter. And now we are left wondering what it means for our relationship with humanity. In the military headquarters, Admiral Corks called an emergency meeting with her senior officers. I want a complete analysis of human military capabilities, she ordered. Every ship, every weapon system, every soldier. If they are planning some kind of retaliation for the princess's behavior, I want to know about it before it happens. Admiral, her intelligence officer interrupted. Our analysis suggests the humans are not preparing for war. Their ships have not changed positions. Their weapon systems remain in standby mode. They are simply waiting. Waiting for what? We do not know. And that is what concerns me most. Back on the human station, Jake sat in his personal quarters reading reports. There was a knock on his door. Come in, he said. Lisa entered carrying 2 cups of coffee. Thought you might need this. The Valthene have sent 14 messages now. Kyle is getting very nervous. Crow 2. Well, Fee. Kyle is always nervous, Jake said with a slight smile. That is what makes him good at his job. He worries about everything, so the rest of us can focus on what matters. You really think this approach will work? Lisa asked. She sat down across from him. The silent treatment? It is not a treatment, Jake said. It is a boundary. The princess needs to understand that there are consequences when you insult someone, and the Empire needs to understand that humanity will not accept being disrespected, even by beings who have superior technology. Some people would call that pride. Some people would call it self-respect, Jake countered. There is a difference between arrogance and knowing your value. We came here in good faith. We offered fair trade. We showed respect to their culture and their throne. If they cannot give us the same basic courtesy, then we have nothing further to discuss. Lisa drank her coffee. The crew supports you completely. Word spread about what happened. Everyone agrees. You did the right thing. Good, Jake said. Because this is going to get more complicated before it gets better. He was right. On Valthene Prime, Princess Sarah was discovering that her actions had consequences she had not expected. Courtiers who had once sought her attention were now subtly avoiding her. Advisors looked at her with disappointment instead of admiration. Even her own friends seemed uncertain how to talk to her. Everyone is talking about it, her friend Liz said quietly. About how you insulted the humans and they just left. Some people are saying you brought shame to the throne. I defended Valthene's superiority, Sira protested. I stated facts about their primitive nature. You stated your opinions, Liz corrected her gently. And you did it in a way that has left us with no path forward diplomatically. The humans will not talk to us. Chancellor Vex does not know what to do. And your father is extremely angry with you. Sira felt something she rarely experienced. Doubt. But we are superior to them, she said, though her voice sounded less certain now. The Valthine Empire has existed for thousands of years. Humans are newcomers to space travel. Runda, maybe we are more advanced, Liss admitted. But they are newcomers who apparently do not care about our opinion of them. That takes real power, Sira. They do not need us to validate their worth. That night, Emperor Krath called an emergency council meeting. The vast council chamber filled with the Empire's most important people. Military leaders, scientists, philosophers, economists, and diplomats all gathered. We have a serious situation, the Emperor began without any preliminary remarks. My daughter insulted the human ambassador in our throne room. He responded by leaving without a word. Now, we must decide what to do next. We must demand he return immediately and apologize, Admiral Cork said at once. To leave without being properly dismissed is an insult to your throne. An apology for what? Philosopher Merrick's asked. The princess insulted him first. By our own laws of hospitality, we are the ones who gave offense. Actually, 10-7. Actually, Lever 1C. 18-2. Doing laws. Our laws apply to Valthine guests, a courtier protested, not to primitives from young species. That attitude, Chancellor Vex said sharply, is exactly what created this problem. The humans may be young, by our standards, but they are not primitives. They have interstellar travel capability. They have developed advanced mining techniques that we could benefit from. They have resources we need, and now they will not talk to us because we treated them with contempt. So we should apologize? Admiral Cork said with disbelief in her voice. The Valthine Empire should apologize? To humans? Perhaps not the Empire as a whole, the Emperor said quietly. But perhaps the one who gave offense should make amends for her actions. All eyes turned to where Princess Sarah sat alone at the edge of the council chamber. She felt the weight of their stares and understood, for the first time, the full impact of what she had done. But father, she said slowly, if I apologize, will that not make me look weak? Will that not make the entire empire look weak? Weakness, Philosopher Merrick said, is refusing to admit when you are wrong. Strength is having the courage to make things right. The human ambassador walked away because he had the strength not to respond to your provocation. Perhaps you need similar strength to admit your mistake. The council argued for hours. Some wanted to ignore the humans and find other trading partners. Others pointed out that the shield technology trade would benefit both species greatly. Scientists wanted access to human data on different faster-than-light travel methods. Economists worried about the cost of losing this opportunity. Finally, Emperor Krath raised his hand for silence. Here is what I have decided, he said. Sarah will have one chance to make this right. Not a formal diplomatic communication, but a genuine apology from one person to another. If he accepts and agrees to meet with her, she will go alone to apologize in person. Alone? Sarah asked, shocked. Alone, the Emperor confirmed. This is not about the Empire. This is about you learning that your words have consequences. You created this problem. Now you will fix it. 3 days passed without any contact between the humans and the Valthine. In diplomatic terms, 3 days might as well have been a year. The human station remained quiet, and the Valthine grew more worried with each passing hour. Jake spent his time looking at trade proposals from other species in the sector. The Valthine were not the only advanced civilization that humanity had encountered. They were just the closest and the most powerful. If these negotiations failed completely, there were other options. Not as good, perhaps, but they existed. Message number 47, Lisa announced as she entered Jake's office. Chancellor Vex again. He is practically begging us to return to the negotiating table. What is he offering this time? Better trade terms than before. Access to some of their educational databases. A formal apology from the diplomatic corps for the princess's behavior. But not from the princess herself, Jake observed. No, Lisa confirmed. Not from her personally. Jake leaned back in his chair. Then we continue waiting. On Valthene Prime, Princess Sira was experiencing something completely new to her: public disapproval. As heir to the throne, she had always been celebrated. Every word she spoke had been praised. Every action had been approved. Now, she walked through the palace corridors and felt coldness in the air. Courtiers bowed to her, but did not smile. Conversations stopped when she approached. "It is not fair," she said to Lys that evening. They sat in Sira's private chambers. "I was defending our culture and our superiority. You were being cruel," Lys said honestly. They were close enough friends that such honesty was possible. "Sarah, I have known you since we were children. You are intelligent, and you will be a great empress someday. But you have a blind spot when it comes to other species. You see them as inferior, and that makes you treat them badly." "They are inferior to us," Sira insisted, but her voice lacked the certainty it had held before. "Are they?" Lys pulled up a holographic screen. "Look at this. Human history. Yes, they have wars and conflicts, but they also have this." Images appeared in the air between them. Human art, music, literature, scientific achievements, acts of incredible courage and self-sacrifice. They live maybe 80 years if they are lucky. We live for 300 years. But look at what they accomplish in their short lives. Look at how desperately they fight to matter, to leave a mark on the universe. Sarah watched silently. She saw humans building impossible structures despite limited technology, creating beautiful works of art, sacrificing their lives to save others, pushing the boundaries of their knowledge despite having so little time to learn. They are desperate. Lys continued. Every human knows they have maybe 1 century to make their mark on existence. So they burn bright and fast like a star. They do not have the luxury of our patience. We have centuries to accomplish our goals. They have decades. And you insulted that desperation. You called them evolutionary dead ends when they are actually running a race against time itself. "I did not think about it that way," Sira admitted quietly. "I know," Lys said. "That is the problem. You did not think. You just reacted based on assumptions and prejudice." In the Imperial Council, the debate continued day after day. Military leaders wanted to make a show of force to demonstrate that the Valthene Empire did not need human approval for anything. Economic advisors pointed out that the asteroid mining techniques humans had developed would save the Empire billions in resource extraction costs. Scientists desperately wanted access to human data on their unique approach to faster-than-light travel. "We are hurting ourselves out of pride," one economic advisor argued. All because a 19-year-old princess could not control her words for one diplomatic meeting. Emperor Krath silenced the room by raising his hand. "The issue is not what we want from the humans. The issue is what they want from us. And right now, the only thing they seem to want is basic respect, which we failed to provide. So we give them respect?" Admiral Cork said. "We, the Valthene Empire, lower ourselves to show respect to humans? It is not about lowering ourselves," Chancellor Vex explained, with barely controlled patience. "It is about basic diplomatic courtesy. We invited them here. We offered to negotiate trade agreements. Then we insulted them in the most public way possible. If another Valthene delegation had been treated that way by a foreign power, we would demand immediate satisfaction. Why should the humans accept worse treatment than we would accept ourselves?" The Admiral had no good answer for that question. On the 4th day, Jake received an unexpected visitor. Ambassador Kyle Chen entered his office, looking exhausted. "Jake, we need to talk seriously," Kyle said. "I have been receiving pressure from Earth. The government wants to know why we are throwing away this opportunity over hurt feelings." "It is not about hurt feelings," Jake said calmly. "It is about establishing the fundamental terms of our relationship with the Valthene. If we accept their disrespect now, At the very beginning, we accept it forever. Every future negotiation will have them thinking they can treat us as inferior beings. But we are inferior to them, Kyle said. Technologically, at least. That is just objective fact. Technologically, maybe. Jake agreed. But not in value as living, thinking beings. Not in dignity. Not in our right to be treated as equals at the negotiating table. Kyle, if we give in on this basic principle, we set a precedent. Not just with the Valthene, but with every other species humanity encounters as we expand into the galaxy. We become the species that everyone can insult without consequences. Kyle sighed deeply. You are probably right, but it is a huge risk to take. The best decisions usually are risky, Jake said. That same evening, Princess Sarah made a difficult decision. She went to her father's private chambers and requested a formal audience. Emperor Krath received her. His ancient face showed no emotion. Father, she began. I want to apologize to the human ambassador. Personally. Father, do you? The Emperor asked. Or do you want to fix the political situation you created? Sarah posed. It was a fair question that deserved an honest answer. Both, she admitted. But mostly the first one. I have been thinking constantly about what I said to him, and I was wrong. Both. Explain your reasoning, the Emperor commanded. I judged humans based on what they lack, rather than what they possess, Sarah said slowly. She was working through her thoughts as she spoke them aloud. They do not live as long as we do, but they accomplish more in their short lives than many Valthene do in 3 centuries. They do not have our advanced technology, but they developed their own systems independently, which means they thought of solutions we never considered. They fight wars among themselves, yes, but they also make peace repeatedly. They are not perfect, but they are not trying to be perfect. They are just trying to survive and grow and leave something meaningful behind. The Emperor studied his daughter for a long moment. You understand that apologizing will be seen as weakness by many members of the court. I understand, Sarah said. But Ambassador Morrison walked away in silence that day, because he had the strength not to respond to my provocation. Maybe it takes similar inner strength to admit when you have made a mistake. Emperor Krath smiled. It was a rare expression on his face. Perhaps there is real hope for your future reign after all. Very well. I will contact Chancellor Vex and arrange a meeting. But Sarah, I must warn you, this apology must be completely genuine. If the human ambassador senses any insincerity, any attempt at manipulation or political maneuvering, he will walk away again, and this time he will not come back. I understand, Father, Sarah said with conviction. I will make this right. The message that arrived at the human station the next morning was different from all the previous communications. It was brief and personal, coming directly from Princess Sarah rather than through diplomatic channels. Ambassador Morrison, the message read. I was wrong to speak to you as I did. I insulted you and your entire species out of ignorance and arrogance. If you are willing to give me the chance, I would like to apologize to you in person. Not as the heir to a throne, but as one individual to another who made a serious mistake and wishes to make amends. Princess Sarah. Jake read the message 3 times carefully. Lisa stood beside him, reading over his shoulder. Do you think it is genuine? She asked. Only one way to find out, Jake said. He composed a brief reply and sent it. I will meet with you. Tomorrow, neutral location. Come alone except for necessary security personnel. The response came back within minutes. Agreed. Thank you. The neutral location they chose was a small diplomatic station that orbited in space between Valthene Prime and the human station. It was maintained by the Intergalactic Diplomatic Corps, a neutral organization that existed to facilitate first contact situations between species. Jake arrived first, with only Lisa accompanying him. The meeting room was deliberately simple. A round table, comfortable chairs, large windows showing the stars beyond. No flags or symbols of any government, no displays of power, just a room where two people could talk honestly. Princess Sarah arrived exactly on time. She wore simple robes instead of her usual elaborate court dress. Her skin showed purple patterns that indicated nervous anticipation. She had brought one guard, who remained outside the room. Jake stood as she entered. For a moment, they simply looked at each other across the room. Then Sarah bowed deeply, which was a gesture of profound respect in Valthene culture. "Ambassador Morrison," she said, "thank you for agreeing to meet with me. Please sit," Jake said, gesturing to a chair across from him. "Would you like anything? Water? We have some beverages from Earth if you are curious to try them." "No, thank you," Sarah said as she sat down. She seemed uncertain how to begin. "I have been thinking constantly about what I said to you. In the throne room. About humans being primitives and evolutionary dead ends." "I remember every word," Jake said neutrally. "I was wrong," Sarah said simply and directly. "Not just tactically wrong in a diplomatic sense, though I was certainly that, but fundamentally wrong in my understanding. I judged your entire species based on limited information and my own prejudices." Jake waited silently. He could see this was difficult for her. He was not going to make it easier with empty reassurances. If she wanted to apologize genuinely, she needed to work through it completely. "I called you primitives," Sarah continued. "But primitives do not build ships capable of crossing between star systems. I called your lifespans pathetically short. But I failed to consider what it means to live with intensity rather than leisure. I said you make war on each other, but I did not acknowledge that you also make peace, over and over again, despite how difficult it must be." She met his eyes directly. "I looked at humanity and saw only what you lack compared to the Valthene. I did not see what you possess that we do not have. And that was profoundly ignorant of me." "What do you think humans have that the Valthene do not?" Jake asked. He was genuinely curious about her answer. Sarah thought carefully before answering Jake's question. "Urgency," she finally said. "Valthene live for 3 centuries. We have time to be patient, to move slowly, to put off decisions for decades. Humans do not have that luxury. You have to act now, accomplish things now, make your mark now. It makes you intense and driven. And I mistook that intensity for primitive behavior when it is actually a form of strength." Jake nodded slowly. "Continue." "You walked away in silence that day," Sarah said. "In Valthene culture, silence after an insult means either weakness or hidden threat. But you were not being weak, and you were not threatening us. You were doing something our culture does not really have a concept for. You were establishing a boundary. You were saying, without any words, that you will not accept disrespect. Not because you are angry, but because you know your worth as a person and as a representative of your species." "And that bothered you?" Jake asked. "It bothered me at first," Sarah admitted. "Because it meant I could not control the situation. I insulted you, expecting you to respond with either anger or submission. You did neither. You simply left. And that gave me no way to win. No way to claim any kind of victory. It was deeply frustrating." Frustrating," Jake repeated the word. "But also enlightening," Sarah added quickly. "Because it made me realize that not everything is a competition. Not every interaction needs to have a winner and a loser. You were not trying to defeat me when you walked away. You were just refusing to participate in a dynamic you found disrespectful." She paused, then said more quietly, "I am 19 years old. In Valthene terms, I am barely an adult. I have been raised my entire life knowing I will be Empress someday, and that knowledge has made me arrogant. I thought my position and my species' achievements gave me the right to judge others as inferior. But you taught me something important. You taught everyone who was watching that day. Real strength is not about dominating others. It is about knowing when to engage and when to walk away. Jake leaned back in his chair slightly. Your Highness, may I be completely honest with you? Please, Sarah said. I would truly appreciate it. When you insulted humanity in that throne room, I was angry, Jake said. Not visibly, but internally. You attacked everything my species has struggled to achieve. We fought our way up from basic tools to space travel. We built civilizations. We survived wars and diseases and natural disasters. We reached for the stars with primitive rockets when we barely understood the physics involved. We finally made it out here to meet beings like you. And you called us evolutionary dead ends. Sierra visibly flinched but maintained eye contact. But then I realized something important, Jake continued. You are young. You have been raised in an empire so powerful and so old that you have never had to seriously consider other perspectives. You have never failed at anything truly important. You have never been genuinely humbled by circumstances beyond your control. And that is not entirely your fault. It is a product of your life circumstances. That does not excuse my behavior, Sarah said firmly. No. Jake agreed. It does not excuse it. But it does explain it. And understanding the explanation helped me let go of my anger. You were not trying to be deliberately cruel. About the Ron. Not comment. You were being thoughtless. And thoughtlessness can be corrected through careful thought and reflection. Is that why you agreed to meet with me? Sarah asked. Because you believed I could learn from my mistake? Everyone can learn, Jake said. That is one of the fundamental beliefs humans hold. We are all works in progress. Even ambassadors who have been doing this work for 15 years still make mistakes and learn from them. Have you made mistakes in handling this situation? Sarah asked, with genuine curiosity. Jake smiled slightly. I nearly walked away permanently from these negotiations. If your message yesterday had been anything less than genuinely apologetic, I would not have come to this meeting. And while that would have been a principled stand, it also would have cost both our species a potentially valuable relationship. So yes, I made a mistake by almost letting personal pride override practical considerations. Lisa, who had been silent until this moment, spoke up. If I may add something, Your Highness. One of the things humans value most highly is the ability to admit when we are wrong. We do not see it as weakness. We see it as maturity and wisdom. The ambassador walked away because you crossed a serious line. You are here now because you recognize that and want to make it right. Sarah looked at Lisa with something that might have been gratitude. Thank you, Commander. So where do we go from here? Jake asked, bringing the conversation back to practical matters. Your apology is accepted, Princess. I believe it was sincere, but an apology only repairs personal feelings. We still need to address the larger diplomatic situation. What would you suggest? Sarah asked. Honesty and transparency, Jake said. Your father and his council need to understand that humanity values respect above almost everything else. We are willing to trade. We are willing to share knowledge. We are willing to build a relationship with the Valthine Empire. But it must be a relationship between equals, even if we are not equally advanced in all areas. Can the Valthine accept that basic principle? I honestly do not know, Sarah admitted. Our entire culture is built on hierarchy and ranking. The strong dominate the weak. The advanced guide those who are less advanced. Equality is not something we are comfortable with as a concept. Then perhaps it is time for your culture to become uncomfortable, Jake said. Because the galaxy is changing. Humans are not the only new species emerging into interstellar space. In the next century, there will be dozens more. Some will be as technologically advanced as the Valthine. Some will not be. If your empire's automatic response is to treat everyone as either superior or inferior to you, you are going to face many conflicts. Sarah was quiet for a moment, thinking about this. You are right, she said finally. And I believe my father knows it too. That is probably why he allowed me to come here alone, without the full weight of the Empire's diplomatic corps. He wanted to see if I could have this conversation without political posturing. Can you? Jake asked. I am having it right now, am I not? Sierra said with a hint of a smile. Jake smiled back. You are. So let me make a concrete proposal. We return to formal negotiations. But this time, with some clear ground rules. First, mutual respect in all communications between our peoples. Second, recognition that different does not mean inferior. Third, both our species commit to genuinely learning about each other, not just collecting surface data. I can support those terms personally, Sierra said. But I am not the one who makes final decisions for the Empire. No, Jake agreed. But you are the heir to the throne, and you have your father's ear. If you believe this is the right path forward, you can help convince him and the council. Sierra stood up from her chair, and Jake stood as well. She extended her hand in a human gesture. She had clearly been studying their customs. Jake took her hand and shook it firmly. Thank you for coming here today, Princess, and for your honesty. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to make this right, Sarah replied. I truly hope this is the beginning of something positive between our peoples. I believe it can be, Jake said, if we both commit to making it work. As Sarah prepared to leave, she turned back one more time. Ambassador Morrison, may I ask you something personal? Of course. When you walked away that day, were you absolutely certain I would eventually come to apologize? Or were you genuinely prepared to end the relationship permanently? Jake considered the question carefully. I hoped you would come around eventually. You seemed intelligent, and intelligent people can usually be reasoned with, given enough time. But yes, I was fully prepared to walk away permanently if necessary. Some principles matter more than any trade deal or political alliance. Like dignity, Sarah said. Like dignity, Jake agreed. After Sarah left, Lisa turned to Jake. That went much better than I expected it to. She is young, Jake said. But she is not foolish. Give her a few years of experience and some genuine challenges, and she might actually become a very good empress. Do you think the Empire will actually accept the terms you proposed? We will find out soon enough, Jake said. But I think we just turned a potential enemy into a potential ally. That alone makes this entire difficult situation worthwhile. The next day, Jake received an official communication from Emperor Krath himself. The message was brief, but significant. Ambassador Morrison, my daughter has reported to me the substance of your conversation. I am impressed by both her growth and your wisdom. I invite you to return to Valthene Prime to resume formal negotiations. I give you my personal word that you will be treated with the respect your position and your species deserve. Emperor Krath. Jake showed the message to Lisa and Kyle. He is giving his personal word, Kyle said with some surprise. That is enormous in Valthene culture. He is putting his own honor on the line. Then I suppose we should accept the invitation, Jake said. Lisa, prepare the shuttle. Kyle, start putting together our negotiating team. We have work to do. Do you want me to bring security? Lisa asked. A small detail, Jake said. Enough to show we take precautions, but not so many that it looks like we expect trouble. We are going there in good faith. Good faith that was earned through holding firm on our principles, Kyle observed. You took a significant risk, Jake. It could have gone very differently. Yes, Jake agreed. But risks are sometimes necessary when establishing relationships that will last for generations. We could have accepted the insult and gotten a trade deal, but we would have set a terrible precedent. By walking away, by demanding respect, we established that humanity will not be treated as a lesser species. That matters more than any amount of technology we might have gained through submission. The shuttle trip back to Valthene Prime felt very different from the first one. This time, Jake felt cautiously optimistic. The princess had learned something valuable. The emperor had shown wisdom, and humanity had demonstrated that even a young, relatively weak species could command respect through strength of character. As the purple planet grew larger in the viewport, Jake thought about what lay ahead. Negotiations would still be difficult. There would be disagreements and compromises, but they would be negotiating as equals now, not as superior and inferior beings. Sometimes, the most important victories were not won through weapons or technology. They were won through the simple act of knowing your worth and refusing to accept less than you deserved. 2 weeks later, the formal negotiations began again. This time, everything was different. Instead of the huge, intimidating throne room, Emperor Krath arranged for a smaller council chamber. The room was still impressive, but felt more appropriate for actual discussion, rather than displays of power. The Valthene delegation included Emperor Krath, Princess Sarah, Chancellor Vex, and several key advisors. The human delegation consisted of Jake, Lisa, Ambassador Kyle Chen, and a trade specialist named Dan Cooper, who had just arrived from Earth. The atmosphere in the room felt cautiously hopeful. Emperor Krath opened the meeting. Ambassador Morrison, on behalf of the Valthene Empire, I wish to formally apologize for the disrespect you experienced during your first visit. My daughter has shared with me the full substance of your private conversation, and I believe we have much to learn from each other. Thank you, Your Imperial Majesty, Jake said respectfully. I appreciate that deeply, and I apologize if my departure seemed disrespectful to your throne. That was not my intention. Your intention was perfectly clear, the Emperor said, and there might have been amusement in his voice. You were establishing that humanity will not accept being treated as inferior. I respect that greatly. In fact, I wish more of my courtiers had such firm principles. Chancellor Vex cleared his throat. If we may proceed to the actual negotiations, we have considerable ground to cover. The hours that followed were intensive but productive. They discussed technology exchange in detail, human mining techniques that could extract rare materials from asteroids efficiently in exchange for Valthene shield technology that could protect human ships in dangerous regions of space. They established clear protocols for future communications between their governments. They even set up a cultural exchange program where young people from both species could study in each other's educational institutions. I would like to participate in that program, Princess Sira said suddenly. The cultural exchange. I would like to visit Earth and live there for a time. If humans would accept me. Jake was genuinely surprised but kept his expression neutral. That could certainly be arranged, Your Highness. Though I should warn you, Earth is much more chaotic and unpredictable than Valthene Prime. Good, Sarah said firmly. I could benefit from some chaos in my life. It might help me finish growing up and learning about the universe beyond my comfortable existence here. Emperor Krath looked at his daughter with clear approval. An excellent idea, Sira. You will go to Earth for one of their years. Learn about humanity directly. Understand them as people, not just as data in reports. And when you return, you will be far better equipped to lead our empire in this new age of cooperation with other species. As the day progressed, the negotiations took on an increasingly friendly and productive tone. Trade terms were agreed upon that satisfied both parties genuinely. Scientific collaboration was planned in areas where both species could benefit from shared research. Military leaders from both sides even discussed the possibility of joint training exercises in the future. Carefully controlled exercises, of course. But it was a promising start toward mutual understanding and trust. During a break in the discussions, Sarah approached Jake privately in one of the side chambers. I wanted to thank you again, she said quietly. Not just for accepting my apology, but for the way you handled that entire difficult situation. You could have escalated the conflict. Instead, you walked away and let your silence communicate more than words ever could have. It is a technique we humans have developed over thousands of years of conflict and diplomacy, Jake explained. Sometimes, the strongest thing you can possibly do is refuse to fight when someone tries to provoke you. I am trying to learn that approach, Sira said. It does not come naturally to Valthine. We are raised from childhood to meet every challenge directly and aggressively. Every culture has its particular strengths and its weaknesses, Jake said. The key to wisdom is recognizing both honestly. I have a question I have been wondering about, Sira said. When you walked away that day, were you completely certain I would eventually come to apologize? Or were you genuinely prepared to end the relationship permanently between our species? Jake thought carefully before answering. I hoped you would eventually come around and see the situation differently. You seemed intelligent, and intelligent people can usually be reasoned with, eventually, given enough time. But yes, I was fully and genuinely prepared to walk away permanently if that became necessary. Some principles and values are worth more than any trade deal or political alliance could ever be. Like personal and cultural dignity, Sira said. Exactly like dignity, Jake agreed. The negotiations concluded 3 days later with remarkable success. A formal treaty was signed that established trade relations, cultural exchange programs, and mutual defense agreements in case either species faced external threats from hostile forces. It was not yet a full military alliance, as both sides remained appropriately cautious. But it was an extremely solid foundation for a lasting relationship. At the formal closing ceremony, Emperor Krath addressed both delegations and many observers who had gathered. Today marks a genuinely new chapter in Valthine history, he said, his ancient voice carrying through the chamber. For 6,000 years, our empire has stood essentially alone, confident in our superiority over all other species we encountered. But the universe is vast beyond measure, and we are not its only wonders or its only intelligent life. Humanity has shown us clearly that strength comes in many different forms. Sometimes, strength is in advanced technology. Sometimes, it is in the courage to face a brief life with fierce determination. And sometimes, it is in the wisdom to walk away from a fight that serves no good purpose. He turned to face Jake directly. Ambassador Morrison, you taught my daughter, and through her all of us, a valuable lesson about power and respect. You showed us that true power is not found in dominating others, but in knowing your own worth so completely and deeply that you need not prove it to anyone. The Valthine Empire is genuinely honored to call humanity our partners and friends. Jake bowed respectfully. The honor is completely mutual. Your Imperial Majesty, humanity looks forward to learning many things from the Valthine, and we sincerely hope that you might learn some things from us as well. Oh, we have already learned much, the Emperor said with a slight smile. We have learned that the galaxy is far more interesting and complex than we previously thought, and we have learned that we have much to be appropriately humble about, despite our age and achievements. As the ceremony concluded and the various delegations began to depart, Sarah managed to catch up with Jake one final time before he left. I will see you on Earth in 6 months, she said with genuine enthusiasm. I find myself actually excited about the experience. We will make sure you have a genuinely good experience there, Jake promised. Though I should fairly warn you that humans can be just as frustrating and difficult as Valthine, just in completely different ways. I am absolutely counting on that, Sira said. I have so much left to learn about the universe and about other ways of thinking and living. We all do, Jake said wisely. That is what makes existence interesting and worthwhile. On the shuttle flight back to the human orbital station, Lisa turned to Jake with a thoughtful expression. You know, when you walked away that day without a word, I genuinely thought you were either completely crazy or absolutely brilliant. It turned out to be brilliant. It was honestly a little bit of both, Jake admitted with a slight smile. But sometimes you have to take significant risks to achieve meaningful results. If I had stayed there and argued with her, we would have just been two people shouting at each other with no productive outcome. By walking away, I forced her to actually think about what had happened and why. And that thinking led directly to understanding. The power of silence used strategically, Lisa mused. The power of knowing precisely when to engage and when to step back, Jake corrected gently. Humanity has fought enough wars throughout our history to understand deeply that not every battle needs to be fought. Sometimes the strongest thing you can possibly do is demonstrate that you do not need to prove anything to anyone. Ambassador Kyle Chen, sitting nearby, joined their conversation. Earth is already calling you a hero throughout the media, Jake. The man who won a crucial negotiation by refusing to negotiate initially. I was not refusing to negotiate, Jake clarified. I was refusing to be openly disrespected and treated as inferior. There is an important difference. Once they understood that fundamental point, genuine negotiation became possible on equal terms. Well, whatever we call it, the approach clearly worked, Kyle said. We now have a solid treaty with one of the most powerful empires in this entire sector of space. That is going to open many doors for humanity across the galaxy. As word spreads, Jake looked out the shuttle window at the vast field of stars beyond. Somewhere out there, in that immense darkness, humanity was still taking its first uncertain steps into a truly vast universe. They would inevitably face many challenges. They would make mistakes. They would encounter species that viewed them as primitive or inferior because of their youth and limited technology. But they would face it all with the same fundamental principle he had demonstrated so clearly in the Valthine throne room. Dignity. The quiet but unshakable strength that comes from knowing your worth and refusing to accept anything less than basic respect. It was not about claiming superiority over others. It was not about domination or conquest. It was about recognizing that every thinking, feeling species, regardless of how long they had been traveling between stars or how advanced their technology had become, possessed inherent value as conscious beings. And that value absolutely deserved acknowledgement and respect. You know what I think the best part of this whole situation is? Lisa said, interrupting his philosophical thoughts. What is that? In the end, Princess Sarah learned more from your silence than she would have learned from any lengthy argument or lecture. You did not lecture her about respect. You did not explain in detail why her behavior was wrong. You simply showed her through deliberate action that there are real consequences to showing disrespect, and she figured out the rest of the lesson herself through reflection. That is teaching at its absolute finest, Jake agreed. Give people the tools and space to discover truth on their own initiative. The lessons stick far better that way than if you just tell them what to think. As the shuttle finally docked with the human station, Jake felt a deep sense of satisfaction and accomplishment. The mission that had seemed completely doomed just a few weeks earlier had somehow transformed into the foundation for lasting peace and cooperation between two very different species. All because a 19-year-old alien princess had learned a crucial lesson about respect and humility. That respect is not something you can demand based solely on superior technology or ancient empires. It is something you must earn by treating others with the dignity they inherently deserve as thinking beings. And all because a human ambassador had understood something profound. That sometimes the most powerful statement you can possibly make is to say absolutely nothing at all. 6 months passed quickly. Princess Sarah arrived on Earth as planned. She spent a full year living among humans, attending a major university, experiencing directly what it meant to be part of a species that lived intensely because of limited time. She made genuine friends. She faced real challenges. She continued growing and learning. When she finally returned to Valthine Prime, she was noticeably changed. Not in her fundamental nature, as she was still clearly the princess and the heir, but she had become wiser, more empathetic, more genuinely willing to see strength and value in different forms of existence. And when she eventually became Empress Sira many decades later, she always remembered that important day when a human ambassador had walked away in complete silence. She remembered the profound lesson it had taught her about power and respect, and she led the Valthine Empire with an entirely new philosophy. That true power lies not in dominating other beings, but in recognizing and honoring the inherent worth present in all intelligent life. The relationship between humans and Valthine grew stronger year by year. They became close allies, then genuine friends, then true partners in exploring and protecting their shared region of space. Other species throughout the sector took notice of this unusual partnership and began reaching out to both civilizations. This created an expanding network of cooperation that would have seemed completely impossible in earlier times. And the foundation of it all had been laid because one man understood a simple truth. That silence, when used at precisely the right moment in exactly the right way, could communicate more powerfully than any words ever could. The Valthine had spent millennia learning to value direct confrontation and verbal dominance. Now, they learned to equally value restraint and thoughtful silence. And in learning that difficult lesson, both species became significantly stronger and wiser. The story of the silent ambassador became legendary on both worlds. It was taught in schools as an example of effective diplomacy. It was studied by negotiators, learning their craft. It was told to children as a lesson about the importance of knowing your worth. But for Jake Morrison, it remained simply a moment when he had chosen to walk away rather than engage in a pointless conflict. A moment when he had valued dignity over political advantage. A moment when he had demonstrated that humanity, despite being young and relatively weak, would not accept being treated as inferior. It was not about pride or arrogance. It was about self-respect. And that self-respect had opened doors that might otherwise have remained closed forever. Years later, when Jake was asked about that day, he always gave the same simple answer: I just walked away. Sometimes that is the strongest thing you can do.